Absolutely. Yeah, and investing like anything else, because I always tell entrepreneurs, investors are people,
Yeah.
just like us, and so it's all about relationships. And
Hmm.
so I use this when I talk about sales, but you can use it for financing too. I'll mention to people that think of yourself as you're the daughter of your parents, and you've decided to join Girl Scouts, and now
Hmm.
it's Girl Scout cookie selling time, and you've got your Girl Scout cookies. Who are you selling your first box of Girl Scout cookies to? Your parents.
Yeah.
Why? Because your parents
Yeah.
have a vested interest in your success. They don't want to see you fail. They want to see you succeed, right? So, and what tends to happen if you worked in any corporate environment, the parents tend to take the Girl Scout cookie sign up sheet to their
Yes,
work,
they do.
and sell the
Yes, they
cookies
do.
for their daughter, and so, you know, whether whether it's in sales or in finance, you want your investor. How do you develop a relationship with your investor so they think they're your parent, right? And they treat you accordingly,
Yeah.
right? So
Yes.
you want them to have a vested interest in your success. You don't want them to just give you money. You want them to give you advice. You want them to
Yeah.
open up their network of connections to you so that you can, find suppliers easier and get better deals with your
Yeah.
suppliers. So you can get customers easier. So you can create strategic alliance partnerships with complementers and competitors, right?
Yeah.
The relationships they have, that you want them to bring you into these relationships to help your business, scale, right? And so if they, if they view you as their child, their Girl Scout cookie selling child, they're going to do that for you. And
I
you know,
love the framing of that. Yeah.
so it's all about relation. Business is all about relationships, and at the end of the day, you talked about it earlier. It's business is common sense, right? And
Yeah.
if you thought about what you did when you were younger, in your neighborhood to survive, and you applied a lot of common sense, right? Business is the same way. Those people are going to be more successful than, the people that think they know how business runs. We overcomplicate this.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
rocket science. It's common sense,
Yeah.
and common sense
Well, I
works.
mean, you know the follow-up to that. Common sense is not common. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah, we can bring it back around to that, but at the same time, frame it in a way. I love the analogy because the analogy covered the parts where you may not have common sense, but you have good sense.
yeah,
And good
yeah,
sense is a survival instinct. And
right.
it's something that you can say, well, I know where I fall short. I know where my limits are. I know who doesn't have these limits. And you start to look for ways to be able to bring people into that. So I love the Girl Scout analogy because that is very much what it is.
Yeah,
And what
yeah,
you're really looking at in these situations is this is why I loved more of the account management side than the sales side, because anybody can sell something once.
yeah,
I wanted to be on the side where once you made the investment, that like now there's nowhere for me to hide. Like I
yeah,
have to be able to deliver on what it is that I'm saying. So for me, that's where the real challenge was. And I think that's part of what we're talking about. There's anyone can lend you money, but
yeah,
what you're really looking for is someone that's invested in you and what it is that you're doing because those are people that will make introductions. Those are
yeah,
people that will get you in rooms that you may not be able to get into on your own. And then realistically, I mean, I'm old school. I don't want someone to make an introduction until I know that I'm able to live up to the expectations of what that introduction would get me. But,
yeah,
I'm a little bit different. I don't expect me from other people, but I will say these are the things that we're talking about. You want people that can get you into these rooms. These are the strategic partners. Like they're not just giving you money, they're giving you invitations to be able to have conversations that you would normally never have access to.
yeah,
And that's where we see people end up evolving. And that's the importance of strategic partnerships. There's a lot of people that want to be the hero, but the real heroes are the people that are working behind the scenes that can make those introductions. Those are the people that will say, no, trust this guy. I have my reasons. If you take it back to the Girl Scout analogy, I know how many different times I've been in an office. I know how many times I've given my mother candy for her to be able to sell.
yeah,
My mother worked in data processing. There were
yeah.
people that were like, I need my reports. I'm not going to run the risk of alienating you by not buying candy. And then all
Right,
of a
right.
sudden my reports could come in late.
Yeah,
Mom, I
yeah.
know you would not do that, but
Right,
you get where I'm going with it.
right,
So
right, right, right.
you get to leverage other people's leverage
Yeah,
when you're in those situations that you would never be able to do on your own. So even
yeah,
if you were able to gain access to that person,
right.
again, music industry, I know people used to stand out in front of the record labels and stand there with their tapes and their
Yeah,
demos and all the rest of that.
yeah,
That's not what was going to get you through the door.
right,
That's not going to get you into the building. What was going to get you into the building is someone co-signing on you
right.
so that when you got into the building, they could say, well, you've already thought through those extra steps, those extra things that need to come along with it. And if that person is saying that you're someone that they sign off on,
Yeah,
then I'm basing it on their history, not on my relationship with you.
right.
And then it's up to you to be able to live up to the hype of whatever it is that person says. You're covering, we didn't just talk about the business model, we talked about the business plan. We talked about what the process looks like. Even if you're starting from scratch, you can
Yeah,
go with GoFunding, you can go to crowdfunding. These are the latter steps that you can take to be able to do some of these things. And then we just segued into uh, who and how to start deciding who you want to be able to work with. So that once again is a great lead in to what I want to be able to ask you is when it comes to structuring the deals, structuring deals that you can actually live with. There are times where one of the things that I want to be able to cover is this is where fear can actually be useful. I just, I'm hope I'm irrational confidence as far as an entrepreneur,
yeah,
but then there's also life experience that tells me, oh no, when your instincts tell you not to do something, look at that because I want to not just think about what I stand to gain, but what I stand to lose. So
yeah.
why is discomfort a signal when structuring a deal, and how do you listen to it without actually letting it run the process for you? So there are some people that they'll get so overwhelmed by fear that they don't make the moves that they need to make.
Yeah,
But then there are also the people that feel the fear and they know, okay, this is a caution sign. It's not a stop sign. It's a caution
right,
sign that says ask better questions, ask better follow-up questions so that you can at least be able to say, I didn't just say yes. I asked the follow-up questions to understand what happens after
right.
this initial conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, this all ties back into the business plan, right? And the
Mm,
financial section of the business plan, because the financial section of the business plan tells you what your deal is, right? So, you know, when you're doing this, and I think I had mentioned this to you, I tell entrepreneurs to always start with an assumption page, right? Always
yes.
when they're building their financials. Um, uh, you have a certain set of assumptions. At the end of the day, you want to understand what am I going to spend, what money is going to come in, and where is it going to come from, and all that good stuff. But in the grainiest level of detail possible, you want to lay out what assumptions am I making about revenue.
Hmm.
What are my products? List all my products. What am I pricing my products at? Right? Who am I selling my products to? How big are those markets? What percentage of the market am I getting? How many sales do I think I can make on a daily basis? You know, um, am I discounting, the product, and what's the discount rate, and what percentage of my products do I have to discount, and all these types of things, so that that those will be under your revenue assumptions. Then with your expense assumptions, what who am I hiring? What role are they going to be in? How much am I going to pay them? Am I giving them bonuses? And what taxes do I have to pay for them? Um, what other benefits do I have to provide them? What are they going to cost me? What supplies do I have to acquire to run this business? Or am I going to have a facility? What's rent going to be? All of these things get laid out on your assumption page, right? And then from that, it builds your set of financials. And where this is important is when you start to talk to an investor, you want to discuss assumptions. You don't want to talk financials, right?
No.
Because at the end of the day, if I agree on your assumptions, I'll agree on your financials, right? And the financials will tell me what type of deal that you have.
Hmm.
So if I agree on all the assumptions and agree on the financials, then I'll agree on the deal. If I question something in your financials, and we can go back to the assumptions that I made to that ultimately ended up giving you those numbers. We have a discussion about the assumptions. For instance, you know, I'm going to hire this person and pay them this amount of money. And the person says, "Well, I don't believe you can hire a person at that rate."
Yes.
And he said, "Okay, well, how much do you think I have to pay for this person?" oh, I think you have to pay them 10% more than you're anticipating because that person isn't in your local area. You might have to get them from another area. You have to relocate them, so that, so on and so forth.
Mhm.
So you might have to pay 10% more than you're anticipating. Okay, well, let me change that in my financial model. Let me increase that rate 10%, and then recast my financials. And
Yeah.
then now look at the financials. Is this a doable deal still? Right? If it is, then we should be able to move forward. It's different than having just going in without the assumption. And I'm just going to show you 5-year projected financials. And then let's say you have a question about, something. Hey, how did you come up
Mhm.
with, this particular salary issue item? I got to remember, how long ago did I create this? These
Yes,
financial
yes,
statements.
yes.
Maybe I created it a year ago because chances you might be raising capital for years, right? So
Mhm.
if I created this these set of financials a year ago, am I going to remember how I came up with this one number? Chances are
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
But if I have an assumption page,
It's your cheat sheet.
yeah, and someone asks that question, all I have to do is go back to the assumption that led up to that number. And then I said, oh, okay. I said I was going to hire this person. I was going to hire them in this month. They were going to try. They were going to cost me this much in salary, this much in
Mhm.
benefits. Okay, that's how I came up with that number.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
now you can
yeah.
have intelligent discussion. You know, so
Yeah, I so much to unpack in that.
yeah,
One, I love the fact that, some people will hear assumptions and they just think of the negative connotation to it, but the assumption page is a thing that allows people to be able to see, like it's a math teacher says, "Show me your work." There are a lot of people that can come up with the numbers. I will equate it to the gurus and people that I see on LinkedIn and all these other platforms saying, "Well, this is how I'll show you how to be able to generate this much money in this amount of time." And my thing is, now, is that revenue or is that profit? Like,
yeah,
I need to understand because that's an assumption
yeah,
that I can help you make 10 figures, 6 figures in 6 months.
yeah,
You're making an assumption. I need to see your work. I need to
right,
understand how you plan on coming up with this.
right,
Is you just saying this is how much I can help you generate, or is that how much money I'm going to have on the back end?
right,
Because that's going to allow me to be able to figure out, is am I willing to listen to you based on like what it is that you're saying? Because there's semantics and there's a
yeah,
lot of things that can be thrown into that.
right,
So, one, the assumption page, very, very important.
right,
Don't take assumptions as being something that's negative. The assumption page is you showing your work and saying how you came up with those numbers.
right,
The other thing that I think that I want to make sure, and not think, I know that I want people to understand is the importance of having someone stress test the assumption page.
yeah,
Because that goes back to what we were talking about when you sit down with someone and you start to have that conversation with an investor. The people that really care about you are going to test that assumption page right off,
yeah,
and they'll tell you, yeah, this isn't going to, like, your numbers don't line up. These assumptions that you're making, here's why this doesn't work. That's where you get the answers. That's where you
yeah,
start to check the boxes to be able to go, yeah, I didn't check this box. I didn't check this box. So the next time you go to have that conversation, it goes back to what you said. It's not often that you're going to have that conversation with one investor and you're going to get that investment that you want
yeah,
from that first person. So this is where you have that conversation with people and you start to stress test it. Am I looking at this the right way? And the right people are going to tell you, well, here's the blind spot that you're missing. And then you come up with iterations, you fine tune it. So by the time you go to get in front of the person that you really want to be able to have that conversation with,
yeah,
you've gone through those iterations and you're able to ask the follow-up questions. At
yeah,
that point, they turn into frequently asked questions
yep,
because you've been presenting it so much that it's something that when they go to bring that up, oh yeah, I thought about that part. And here's what I'm basing that on. The other thing I think that is really important is time frame,
yeah,
because everything continues to evolve.
right,
So what people are getting paid at the time when you first started thinking about something, it doesn't line up with what they expect to get paid at another time.
yeah, yeah,
There's employers markets. There's employee markets. Like, you have to understand, like, when you're having these conversations, because I know from the corporate side, when it was an employees market, oh, these companies had to be able to empty their pockets. I mean, we're going to give you extra week off for vacation. We're going to do this. They had to sweeten the pot.
Yeah.
But like these days with them scaling back and doing all these things, I know that I had a post once and it went viral for all the wrong reasons. I'm not on the corporate side, so I don't
Yeah.
really get involved in that the same way.
Yeah.
But the short version is someone was saying, if I come to you and you say that's not my job, then it's a problem. And I said, you know who's probably posting this? Supervisors, managers, and executives.
Yeah.
You know who's not saying that? The people that are actually doing the work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember what it was like to be on both sides of it. So my thing is, as a supervisor or manager, my thing is, if you tell me something's not your job, I have follow-up questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're irritated and that's your response, then that means that someone's been asking you to do somebody else's job, and I need to figure out what kind of hole there is to plug to be able to fix that. So if we
Yeah.
bring that back over to this side, when
Mhm.
you're making these assumptions, this is going to highlight the assumptions that you're making and let you know if you're on the right track with it, if you're not on the right track with it. It's going to give you context, and context is what you need in these situations to really be able to figure out how to be able to have the conversation with the people that you want to have it with. And that's what gives you more leverage and more negotiating power, because they can tell when you've given it that level of thought. They can tell where it's like, I know how smart I thought you were, but clearly
Yeah.
you've spoken with some people that are
Yeah.
beyond what I thought,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you've been able to fill in some of those blind spots, and then you can get further into that conversation.